We got a good slate of games tonight, so that's good. I know you're going to puff your chest out and talk about that Missouri game in a little bit.
What about Missouri? What happened? Missouri? What happened last night?
All I know is listen. You can brag all you want about that one, and I'm going to brag all I want about Tom Izzo destroying your boy Steve Peichel. And
yeah,
I love Peichel. I love Peichel, but it was an interesting night in college hoops last night. You have Michigan State, I think maybe getting back on track, beating the Rutgers team that a lot of people have ranked in the top 15, and Michigan State finally guarded. Like that was the big thing, right? If they can defend, they're going to have to grind out games now. They're not going to score 80 points consistently, but if they can win in the 60s, and that means really clamping down on their defense, they at least have a chance to make some noise in the Big Ten, which I expect them to do.
Yeah, the idea that a team with the talent that they had wasn't going to be able to figure it out, what was I thinking? Why did I go that way? Now, I don't think that my process there was bad in terms of saying, okay, Rutgers is really, really good and really, really well coached, and if Michigan State's going to figure it out, I don't think it's going to be against this Rutgers team, but hey, they put it together. And for me, I think there's three things that have really happened with Michigan State over the course of the last week, and tell me if you think that I'm wrong here. One, moving A.J. Hoggard into the point guard role has allowed them to have someone that is just like a natural facilitator. Right. Rocket Watts is not that. Like, Rocket Watts can go get you a bucket. He's not a natural facilitator that's going to run an offense. Two, Foster Loyer is he's fine as a backup point guard.
Yeah.
I don't think that you want him being the guy to be the starter. The part of it is he's not great offensively. Part of it is he's kind of a liability defensively, blah, 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 whatever. So A.J. Hoggard coming in and kind of taking over that role, I think has made things easier because three, it's taken the pressure off of Aaron Henry. And
100%. And he looked great last night. He looked great.
It was great against Nebraska the other day. He looks like he's playing confident. I think they're just kind of like asking him to go out there and score more than try to be like a point forward and run the offense. So it looks like it's taking a little bit of stuff off of his plate, which is good. And maybe he can get there where he can be that point forward down the road. But I think right now you just kind of got to let him find a way to get into a rhythm with the confidence building. Combine all that with the fact that they are playing defense. Like they shut down Rutgers last night. So
you think? What Rutgers scored? 40, what did they get, 43, 45 points, something like that?
45 points. They shot 30% from the floor. It was an all-around just a hideous basketball game to watch for like the first 35 minutes. And that's –
Izzo loved it. Izzo loved it. He did.
Yeah, he loved it.
Because they were tougher. They were the tougher team last night, and that's what they need to be. They need to get back to that because they're not winning any other way. They're not outscoring teams. All right, let's get to your Missouri. You can bang on me for my pick. It looked like a sucker pick. I think Mississippi State still is. I called them mediocre last week when they lost to Kentucky, and honestly, I was being generous with the mediocre term. But what I will say is, Iverson Molinar was really good last night. He's fun to watch. He really is. And Stewart's talented. They just shit the bed. Like Missouri, they had full control of that game in the first half, and they came out of the break, and it was like a completely different team.
So the funny part about this is I think late in the first half, Missouri went up by like 16, and I was like, fuck, man, I'm going to have to call in sick tomorrow. I'm going to have to pretend that I have a stomach bug. I don't want to hear Goodman's bullshit. And then, of course, they come back and win. Oh, man, it was. I was sitting there watching that comeback. All right, so I had it on both the TVs, right? And not only did I have
both.
Well, no, I had both the TVs on. And
I thought you had both on Missouri.
No. So I had one on UConn, and I had one on Missouri. And I'm a UConn fan, obviously, and I bet on Mississippi State. I bet on UConn. I had both the money lines. So around 10 o'clock, my life was over because UConn was down by 18.
You thought you were going to lose every game.
Mississippi State was down by 16. I thought all my bets were going to go out the window. I was going to have to come out here and listen to you talk about Missouri and Mississippi State being terrible, and they both come back to one. Like Mississippi State put 51 points up in a half.
And honestly, that was impressive. UConn's comeback might have been more impressive. What were they?
Yes.
They were like down like 20. Both
They
of them
were
came
down.
back strong.
Yeah, they were down 18 with 18 minutes left, and then Tyler Polley scored 22 points in the second half.
Tillman had a dumb foul towards the end of that game. They gave him his fourth. That kind of mentally took him out of the game. They were still in it at that point. I think they were down like 4 or 6 points. I don't know, man. Like I felt good about Missouri, and now I don't anymore. Now I don't, because they got blasted by Tennessee. They lose this one. I know it's a road game. Like, I still can't figure this road thing out. I can't get a feel for how much of an advantage is or is it not. Like, some people try to tell me it's not. Coaches and players that I'm talking to, other coaches and players will still say, hey, it's an advantage to play at home because there's a familiarity as much as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, the locker room you're staying in, the sight lines, when you're walking out of the gym, like where everything's going to be, because they're like, you kind of see out of the corner of your eye, you see this section of the stand, so that that you're going to, like, where you are on the floor. Like, it's just, there's a comfort level with playing in your own building. But honestly, I think the real advantage when it comes to like the home court advantage is the energy you get from the crowd. And the crowd weighing on referees and influencing referee decisions. I think, the two most boisterous fan bases in sports, I think, is college basketball and European soccer. And if you go back and look at studies, like, those are the two ones where home field influences referee decisions more than any other sport. So to me, that's where the advantage lies, and you don't really get that as much. But I think we talked about this earlier. Like, normally it's about like a 3-point advantage in the spread playing at home. I kind of make it at like 1.5 or 2 now, depending on who it is. So there's still something there. It's not quite the same level it was before. All right. So
regardless, Mississippi State should not be beating Missouri by 15 points.
They should not. And I mean, I think the big picture conversation with Missouri is simply that they are a good team that is exploitable in certain matchups. And I think that's just kind of what it is. And we can go from there. All right, Alabama, huge win last night against Florida. They won by 15.
Are you a believer? Are you a believer in the Crimson Tide or no?
I am. I think they're really good. Now, I think that they are, when it comes down to it, I think the SEC is going to be one of these leagues where there's like 4 or 5 teams that are kind of in that like 13-5 and 14-4 range. But I mean, what has Alabama done to make me say like they're not going to be one of those teams in that conversation by the end of the season?
No, they should be there. They got good. Yeah. I mean, again, I've said it all year, even in the preseason. I think they've got veterans, right? They've got veterans on the wing. They brought in Bruner from Yale, a veteran up front. Now they're playing Primo, the freshman. Quinterly didn't play last night, and they look pretty good without him. It'd be interesting to see when he comes back, kind of what the deal is there. And I love Herb Jones. I'm the biggest Herb Jones fan there is, just because he's all about the right things. He's just all about guarding and not, jacking shots just to try to get to the NBA.
So the most impressive thing for me from Alabama's 2 wins, when beating Florida and beating Tennessee, is that like the reputation that Nate Oates has with this program is like, okay, they're going to run around and they're going to jack up like 25 threes, 30 threes, 40 threes. They want to be able to make like, if they make 18 threes on a given night, they can play with anybody. If there's nights where they're hitting like 6, 7, 8, then maybe they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. They've only shot 23s in each of the games against Tennessee and Florida. Like they found ways to win beyond just getting hot from the perimeter on a certain night. And I think that's really impressive, because once you become a team where you have that threat to be able to shoot, and teams know like, okay, they can make 18, 19 threes on a given night, but they don't have to make those threes to win. They can beat you in other ways. That's when you become like a more well-rounded team where you're not as much kind of up and down and unpredictable. What do you got?
Breaking news. Governor Cuomo decides to back, this is on Darren Ravel's Twitter feed, Cuomo decides to back mobile sports betting in New York.
Ooh.
Big news. Big news.
That's good. That's very good news for Eric Devendorf's The Scorers Table. podcast.
There you go.
If people
are wondering. Anything else? Kansas beat the crap out of TCU without Marcus Garrett. UConn with a big comeback win over Marquette. Tyler Polley. Shout out to Tyler Polley. That was a huge performance in the second half. He was terrific when Bouknight is hurt, got hurt there and just didn't look like himself. And, again, that bounce back from Kansas was pretty impressive without Marcus Garrett.
Yep. I thought that the win that Kentucky got, like scrapping out another victory against Vanderbilt was, Vanderbilt's bad, but Kentucky's bad too. And like, they're learning how to win. And at some point, we talked about this with, about Kansas on the podcast I do with Deshaun Butler. And at some point, just like figuring out how to win those close games and building up that confidence, it matters. It matters, and it helps you out. So I think that was a big win for Kentucky just to,
translate. The big question is going to be, they just beat two of the bottom teams.
Got to start somewhere.
Agreed. Agreed. The question is, when you go up a notch, and it's not like the SEC is loaded, but are they going to be able to compete against Alabama's, the Tennessees? There's a lot of bad teams in the SEC this year. A lot of bad teams. Vandy, Mississippi State, we mentioned too. Georgia's not good. Auburn's not very good this year. Who else am I forgetting? Forgetting at least one. That
LSU.
LSU's not bad. To me, like, they're not bad. Texas A&M, not very good.
I'll tell you what, we're going to know by next week, because their next two games are at Florida and then they get Alabama at home. So
right.
I think that they had to get these 2 wins heading into those 2 games. But I'll tell you this much. I'm not convinced that BJ Boston is actually really all that good. Like, he hasn't been able to put it together yet. And if he doesn't end up being that guy that can get you like 16, 17 points a night, like, that significantly changes what this Kentucky
because they thought him and Terrence Clark were going to be those two, right? They thought they could get 30 out of those two every night. They're getting like 10 out of. Terrence Clark didn't even play, and they won. The big question. I'm really interested to see how Cal handles Terrence Clark coming back, because they've now won 2 games without him. He's a McDonald's All-American. Some have him as a top 10 pick. I never did, ever. I just never thought he was that good. So what do you do with him? How do you figure this out? Because Cal's still built on making sure these guys get to the NBA. Right? Like, ultimately, he's got to sell that to the next group. And if Terrence Clark fails miserably and Brandon Boston doesn't do well, and they didn't remember last year, it's not like they had a ton of highly, regarded guys in the NBA draft. Quickly was right. Wasn't Quickly was Quickly the highest guy?
Tyrese Maxey was, and Maxey's having a really good start to the season too. Yeah. To a point, yes, I do think that's true, but it's also, I think that there is something to be said for creating some accountability within the program, where you say, like, look, we're going to try to get you to the NBA, but if you're not buying into what you're doing, to what we're trying to do here, like, you're also just not going to play,
right?
And I think that he does. He needs to be able to do that just so, like, he can keep winning. But yes, I understand that they want to get guys to the pros, but, like, at some point, you got to win games too. Like, that's what you're paid to do.
It's a balancing act, right? It's a balancing act for Cal, but this year might be a little bit different for him, because if they're not good, and he knows, like, I think he's got to know right now, we're not a team that's going to be able to make a Final Four run this year. Like, we just need to get to the tournament. Like, that's, to me, if I'm John Calipari, that's my only goal right now. I just want to get to the tournament right now, period.
And I'll tell you what, if Kentucky can get to the tournament after a 1-6 start, that we can mark that down as one of Cal's best coaching performances. And I'll also tell you this: you want to know what I'm rooting for here? What would be unbelievable for our content and for our daily streams is if Kentucky ends up going like 14-4 in the SEC. But they don't get a win against Alabama, and they don't get a win against Tennessee.
Right, whether they get in,
and they end up winning the SEC regular season title, but they don't make it in the NCAA tournament. That right there,
just the committee, it would just be entertaining.
Yes,
on Selection Sunday.
Hey, we're content creators, man. We need something
entertaining. We're going to have that. We're going to have that with one of, like, listen, one of Michigan State or Duke. I mean, again, I'm not sure they're both going to be there, but one of them could be there.
Not Michigan State. Like if Michigan State does enough, they're going to have enough of a profile to win. Like they're in the Big Ten.
They're in the Big Ten. They're going to do enough.
Well, Duke's actually a perfect segue because before we get into tonight's slate, I just want to say like Clemson beat NC State in OT, and North Carolina they got another buzzer beater, another game winner from Andrew Platek this time to beat Miami. So anything to add on those two ACC games? It feels like the ACC is just so not good this year.
It's mediocre. It's mediocre. We don't know who the best team is in the ACC, and that's unbelievable that we're saying like the best team might not be coached by Coach K, Tony Bennett, Roy Williams, or Jim Boeheim. Like really, I mean, there's a good shot that Clemson is the best team, and I wish we had a healthy Miami. I really do. I wish we had a healthy Miami because I honestly think a healthy Miami might have been the best team in the ACC this year.
I've been beating that drum.